The night over London felt wrong. Clouds were low. Street lights made wet roads shine. Sirens kept starting, then cutting off, like something was hunting them too. Sarah's Victoria sat in the back of the Hellsing van, with her rifle across her knees. The gun felt heavier every time she held it, not because of the metal, because of what it meant. "Reports say a whole block is gone," one of the men up front said, voice tight. "People running, biting, tearing. Like ghouls," Sarah said before he could finish. No one answered her. The silence was its own answer. Walter's calm voice came through the radio, clean and clipped. "Miss Victoria, stay close to your team. Do not chase alone." Sarah swallowed. "Yes, Walter." She looked out the window and saw a family pressed against a shop door. A mother held her child and rocked like she could hide him inside her coat. A man stood in front of them with a broken bottle in his hand. His arms shook. Sarah did not like that look. It was the look people got right before they understood they were going to die. The van turned hard and skidded to a stop. The team spilled out. Their boots slapped the wet ground. The air smelled like smoke and blood. Then Sarah heard it. Not a scream. A laugh. It came from up the street, where the shadows were thick. It sounded happy. Sarah raised her rifle and moved forward with her unit. Ghouls crawled over wrecked cars. Their eyes were wild. Their mouths were red. Some still wore office shirts. Some wore school uniforms. One of them dragged a suitcase behind it, like it had not realized it was dead yet. Sarah aimed, but her finger hesitated. She hated the part of herself that still wanted to believe these were people. A ghoul turned toward her and hissed. She fired. The head snapped back. It dropped. Others rushed. The team formed a line and shot in controlled bursts. They moved like they had practiced this 100 times, because they had. But the ghouls kept coming. They were not smart, but they were many. They came in waves, crawling over each other, slipping in the blood and getting up anyway. Sarah took 2 steps back, then another. She saw the family again, the one with the child. They were still trapped. Sarah broke formation. "Victoria!" someone barked. She sprinted toward the family. A ghoul dove at her from the side. She swung the rifle like a bat and smashed its face in. Teeth flew. She did not stop. The man with the bottle stared at her like he had never seen a woman run toward danger before. "Get behind me," Sarah said. The mother grabbed her child and stumbled behind a car. The man followed. Sarah turned back to the street. That was when the sky tore. It did not rip like cloth. It opened like a crack in glass. A thin blue line appeared above the road, right between 2 buildings. It widened in a silent pulse. Wind rushed outward. Papers and ash lifted up. Even the ghouls paused, heads tilting, like animals hearing a new sound. Something fell out. It was small at first. A simple blob, bright blue, almost glowing. It dropped straight down, bounced once on the wet road, and settled like a puddle that refused to spread. Sarah froze. It had no eyes, no mouth, no arms. It just sat there. Then it moved. The blue blob stretched upward into a rounder shape, like it was taking a breath. A clear voice spoke, calm and polite, as if this was a normal place to wake up. "Okay, new place." The blob turned slightly, like it was looking around without eyes. And lots of screaming. Sarah aimed her rifle at it. The blob did not flinch. It faced her anyway. A ghoul lunged from behind it. The blue thing moved faster than Sarah could track. A clear wall snapped into place between the ghoul and the civilians. The ghoul slammed into it and bounced off, snarling. Sarah blinked. That wall was not glass. It was not metal. It looked like air that decided to be hard. The blob spoke again, almost gently. Please don't touch them. Another ghoul leapt, then another. They piled into the invisible barrier like insects hitting a window. They clawed and screeched and bit nothing. The blue thing flowed forward. It slid under the barrier, right into the street, toward the ghouls. Saris expected it to dodge. Instead, it absorbed one. The ghoul's body sank into the blue mass like it was being pulled into deep water. Its arms flailed for half a second. Then it was gone. Saris's mouth went dry. The blob paused, as if listening to something inside itself. So these are humans that got infected, it said, voice quieter now. That's terrible. A ghoul charged Saris. Saris fired, dropped it, then glanced back. The blue thing was moving again. It spread into several smaller slimes for a moment, like it was making extra bodies, then snapped back together. It used the barrier again, making a hallway of invisible walls that guided the ghouls away from the civilians and toward an empty intersection. It was not just fighting, it was controlling the whole space. Saris realized she was watching someone who had done this before. Someone who thought about protection first, not killing. The blue thing rolled to the side of a burning car. It lifted the car with a smooth, simple motion and set it down to block a street. No strain, no shaking, like moving a chair. "Everybody, run that way," it called, pointing with a shape it formed like a hand. "Stay together." Civilians stared at it, then at Saris and the guns. Then they ran. A child tripped. The blue thing's body shot out like a rope and caught the child gently, then set him back on his feet. Saris felt her grip tighten on the rifle. Her mind screamed a single word: monster. But the monster was saving people. Gunfire and screams echoed down the street. The blue crack in the sky flickered, then sealed shut like it had never been there. Saris heard boots behind her. More Hellsing agents arrived. They raised weapons at the blue thing. "Hold!" Saris shouted without thinking. It's not attacking civilians." The men hesitated. The blue thing turned toward them. "Hello," it said, like they were neighbors. "Sorry about the mess." One agent whispered, "What the hell is that?" Saris did not answer. She kept watching the blue thing's movement. It was calm, too calm, like it did not believe anyone here could truly hurt it. Then the shadows deepened near a broken storefront. A tall man stepped out, wearing a red coat like a warning sign. His smile was wide. His eyes looked hungry and amused at the same time. Saris felt the street go colder. Alucard. He did not look at the ghouls first. He did not look at the civilians. He looked at the blue thing like it was a gift. Well, Alucard said, voice smooth and pleased. "What crawled out of the dark tonight?" The blue thing faced him. It did not retreat. It did not threaten. It simply spoke. "I'm not here to hunt humans," it said. Alucard's grin widened. "Oh? Then what are you here for?" The blue thing hesitated for the first time. Not from fear, from thought. "Honestly," it said, "I don't know yet." Alucard laughed again, delighted. Saris realized the worst part. This was not just a new monster. This was a new kind of power, and Alucard wanted to see it bleed. The blue slime watched the red-coated vampire with a calm that surprised even itself. Inside Rimuru's mind, a clear voice spoke with perfect timing. "Report. High-threat entity detected. Unknown regenerative capacity. Unknown soul structure. Suggest caution." Rimuru kept his tone friendly. "Hi, I'm Rimuru." The vampire's eyes narrowed, like he was tasting the name. Alucard. That name did not mean anything to Rimuru yet, but the way the humans reacted did. The blonde girl with the rifle, Saris, stiffened like someone had entered a room with a bomb. Rimuru could smell fear. Not like an animal smell, more like a warm chemical in the air. He could sense it through magic, and through instinct. He also sensed something else. A crowd of humans nearby, hearts racing, blood flowing, fragile. He turned slightly and expanded his barrier, wider now, shielding an entire row of civilians without even looking at them. Sarah stared. Rimuru decided he liked her. She was scared, but she still ran toward people who needed help. He had seen that kind of courage before. Alucard stepped closer. "You ate one," Alucard said, almost playful. "Show me more." Rimuru's body rippled. "No." That simple word made the street feel tense. Alucard's smile did not fade. It sharpened. "Then show me what you are," Alucard said. Rimuru considered the fastest way to end this. He could absorb Alucard. He could also sense that it might not work cleanly. Alucard felt like a storm packed into a human shape. There were layers in him. So many layers. Rimuru chose another path. He lifted his hand again and pointed down the street. "There are still ghouls hurting people," Rimuru said. "If you want to fight, help me clean that up first." Alucard looked past Rimuru toward the chaos. For a moment, Rimuru thought Alucard might actually agree. Then Alucard raised a pistol and fired once. The shot cracked. A ghoul's head exploded far down the street. Alucard did not even aim carefully. He just pointed and ended a life like swatting a fly. "Fine," Alucard said. "We'll play your way." Rimuru felt no comfort in that agreement, because Alucard's idea of play was never safe, and because Rimuru had just landed in a world where monsters wore suits, carried badges, and smiled while they killed. The ride to Hellsing Manor was quiet. Rimuru sat in the back of a black vehicle, like an honored guest who was also a prisoner. The agents did not cuff him. They did not need to. Their fear did the job for them. Rimuru chose a human form for the ride. It was easier for conversation. A small, youthful body with light hair and bright eyes. He made his clothes simple, a dark coat, neat and plain. Sarah sat across from him, rifle between her knees, looking like she might apologize or shoot him at any second. Rimuru smiled softly. "You did a good job out there." Saras blinked. You were the one saving people." "I saw you run toward that family," Rimuru said. "You didn't have to do that." Saras looked away, cheeks tight. "It's my job." Rimuru tilted his head. "Is it?" Saras did not answer. Inside Rimuru's mind, Raphael spoke again. "Analysis. This organization displays high control, likely to attempt containment or weaponization. Recommend strategic transparency. Do not reveal full capabilities." Rimuru sighed quietly. "You always say that." Saras leaned forward. "Who are you talking to?" Rimuru froze, then laughed once, small and awkward. "Ah, sorry." "Habit." Saras's eyes narrowed. "You're not human." "No," Rimuru said, honest. Saras's grip tightened. Rimuru added quickly, "But I'm not your enemy." Saras stared at him for a long moment. "That's what they all say." Rimuru's smile faded. "In my home, I built a place where humans and monsters could live without killing each other." Saras's face flickered with something like hope, then shut down again. "This isn't your home." Rimuru looked out the window at London passing by. "I noticed. They arrived at the manor before dawn. It was a heavy place. Old stone, thick walls, the kind of building that had survived wars because it expected more wars to come. Rimuru walked in without resistance, not because he was obedient, because he wanted to understand what kind of people these were. He followed Saras through long halls and into a wide room with a high ceiling, a long table, dark wood. The air smelled like cigarettes and iron. A woman stood at the head of the room. Sir Integra Hellsing. She did not smile. She did not posture. She simply looked at Rimuru like he was an item on her desk. Walter stood near her, hands folded, calm as always. Alucard lounged in the shadows like he owned them. Integra spoke first. Name. Rimuru stood straight. Rimuru. Integra's eyes stayed steady. What are you? Rimuru chose words carefully. A slime. A monster, if that word makes you comfortable. But I'm also a leader. I protect people. Integra took a slow drag from her cigarette. Protect. She said it like she was testing the taste. Then you will not object to being observed. Rimuru nodded. I expected that. Walter's eyes flicked, mild surprise. Not many threats walked in and agreed so easily. Integra continued. You appeared in the middle of a ghoul outbreak. You displayed powers that ignore firearms. You consumed an undead creature. Explain. Rimuru did not hide it. I can absorb things. I can analyze them inside myself. I can copy some abilities. I use that to stop the attack. Alucard chuckled. He says it like it's nothing. Rimuru glanced at Alucard. It's not nothing. People were dying. Alucard's eyes gleamed. And you stopped it? How nice. Integra lifted one hand slightly. Alucard's laugh cut off. Not because he obeyed out of respect, because he enjoyed the fact that she could order him. Integra stepped closer to Rimuru. Where did you come from? Rimuru took a breath. Raphael's voice was calm and direct. Suggestion. Provide partial truth. Secure trust. Avoid details that create panic. Rimuru spoke in clean beats, simple and clear. I died once, he said. Then I woke up in another world as a slime. I gained power fast because I could learn from what I absorbed. I met humans and monsters. I chose to protect both. I built a place where they could live. Sarah stared. Walter remained still. Integra's face did not change. Alucard's smile returned. Slow. A king slime. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Not a king. A leader. Integra tapped ash into a tray. And now you are here. Rimuru nodded. I did not choose to come. But I can choose what I do while I'm here. Integra studied him like she could measure his honesty with her eyes. What do you want? Rimuru answered without drama. First, to make sure no one dies because I'm confused. Then, to understand why this city is full of undead and people who hunt them. Alucard stepped forward, suddenly close. His presence felt like pressure, like the air got heavier. And if we decide you are a threat? Rimuru did not move. Then you will try to kill me. Alucard's grin widened. Good. Saris's breath caught. Walter's gaze sharpened. Integra's voice stayed calm. Observation begins now, Integra said. Walter. Walter stepped up and offered a tray with a small device, like a scanner. Rimuru lifted a brow. What is it? A test, Walter said politely. If you would allow it. Rimuru held out his hand. The device beeped. Lights flickered. Then it died with a soft pop of smoke. Walter blinked. That should not happen. Rimuru looked embarrassed. Sorry. Inside his mind, Raphael spoke. Report. Device failure due to high energy interference. Recommendation, limit output near fragile technology. Rimuru sighed. I'll try. Integra watched the smoke rise. You are strong. Rimuru nodded. Integra's eyes hardened. Then you are dangerous. Rimuru did not argue. That can be true at the same time. Alucard laughed quietly again. He gets it. Integra turned to Saras. Victoria, report. Saras straightened, voice careful. He protected civilians. He created barriers. He moved cars like they were light. He absorbed ghouls. Integra's eyes flicked back to Rimuru. Why absorb? Why not simply kill? Rimuru's answer came fast, honest. Absorbing stops them without throwing bodies into the street. It keeps civilians safer. It also lets me learn what caused it. Alucard's smile turned sharp. He wants to solve it. Integra's gaze stayed on Rimuru. This world is not solved. Rimuru's face softened. Then it needs people who try. There was a silence, not peaceful. Measured. Integra finally turned away and walked back to her chair. She sat like a judge at the end of a trial. You will remain on this property unless I authorize otherwise, Integra said. You will not consume humans. You will not interfere with national security. You will not act without orders during operations. Rimuru opened his mouth. Integra cut him off. You will be treated as an asset until you prove you are a liability. Rimuru's smile became small. That's direct. That is my job, Integra said. Rimuru nodded. Then I will be direct too. I will not stand by if civilians are about to die. If your order tells me to do nothing while people are being torn apart, I will disobey. Saris inhaled sharply. Walter's eyes flicked to Integra. Alucard's grin widened, like he was watching a good scene in a movie. Integra stared at Rimuru for a long moment. Then she spoke, slow and cold. You may disobey once. If your disobedience creates greater casualties, I will execute you. Understood? Rimuru met her eyes. Understood. Alucard's voice slid in, smooth. And if you become a problem, I'll erase you. Rimuru looked at Alucard. He felt the vampire's hunger and the strange emptiness behind it. A boredom that had lasted too long. I hope we don't get there, Rimuru said. Alucard's smile showed teeth. So do I. By noon, rumors moved faster than the police. Phones had recorded the blue crack in the sky. Someone had captured a blurry shot of Rimuru's slime form blocking a street. Another video showed a red-coated man laughing while firing a pistol at ghouls, like he was at a shooting range. Hellsing agents worked to crush it. They seized phones. They threatened people. They pulled strings. But a few clips still escaped. In a government building far from the manor, men and women sat around a table with flags behind them. Their faces were tired. Their hands were folded tight. The Round Table will not tolerate an unknown entity operating in London, one man said. Another person replied, Hellsing contained it. A third voice cut in, sharper. Did they? Or did it contain the outbreak for them? They watched the video again. A blue barrier, civilians running, ghouls slamming into invisible air. One woman leaned forward. It saved people. A man scoffed. So did a wolf that chased off another wolf. They argued in low voices, like people arguing about a hurricane, because storms did not care about laws. Across the sea, in a bright room filled with crosses and polished floors, Enrico Maxwell smiled. A man placed a folder on his desk. Maxwell opened it slowly. Photos, reports, a grainy shot of a blue human-shaped figure, another of a blue slime. A demon, a priest whispered. Maxwell's smile grew. Or a gift. A door opened. Alexander Anderson walked in like a weapon pretending to be a man. His eyes were focused. His mouth was set hard. Maxwell slid the folder toward him. A new monster has appeared in London. Anderson glanced at the images. His face did not soften even once. Then I will kill it, Anderson said. Maxwell's smile stayed bright. Not yet. First we learn how the world will react. Monsters are useful when people are afraid. Anderson's jaw tightened. Fear does not save souls. Maxwell leaned back, hands folded. Fear moves nations. Anderson said nothing, but his fingers flexed like he was already holding his blades. In a different place, hidden and humming with machines, a man in a military uniform sat in a chair like a king in a theater. He watched the footage on a screen. The Major's eyes shone with joy. A new actor, he whispered. Behind him, the doctor adjusted his glasses and made notes. He did not look excited. He looked hungry in a colder way. A being that absorbs, the doctor said. A being that learns. The major chuckled. Oh, doctor, don't be jealous. I am curious, the doctor corrected. The major's smile widened. Then let's give it a war. It will never forget. Back at the manor, Rimuru stood alone in a guest room that felt like a cage with polite wallpaper. He stared out the window at the grounds. Raphael spoke in his mind, calm as always. Observation. Host faction is disciplined. Key assets: Integra Hellsing, Alucard, Saras Victoria. Threat factions detected: religious organization. Unknown military remnants. Probability of future attack: high. Rimuru crossed his arms and exhaled. I just wanted to make sure nobody died tonight. Correction. Many died. However, projected casualties reduced. Rimuru winced. Thanks. You are welcome. Rimuru rubbed his face. Okay, plan. We need to understand the infection. We need to understand who makes these ghouls. We need rules. He paused. And I need to not look like I'm trying to take over someone's home. Raphael answered instantly. Suggestion. Hold a meeting. Rimuru stared. You're doing it on purpose now. Meeting agenda. Trust building. Operational boundaries. Shared objectives. Rimuru sighed, then smiled a little. Fine. A meeting. When he left the room, Saras was waiting in the hall like she had been assigned to watch him. She tried to look casual. She failed. Rimuru nodded at her. Can you take me to Integra? Saras blinked. Why? Rimuru spoke like he was talking about building a school, not surviving a vampire war. I want to make a plan, a system, a safe way to deal with these outbreaks. Saras stared at him for a long moment, then let out a small, tired breath. You really don't understand this world, she said. Rimuru's voice stayed gentle. Not yet. Saras turned and started walking. Come on then. Let's see how long you last before it eats you. Rimuru followed, still calm. Because if this world was going to try to break him, he would answer the same way he always did. By building something anyway. The first major strike hit 3 nights later. It was not random. It was not a single nest spilling out. It was a coordinated attack, timed like a military operation. Integra stood in the operations room, with maps spread out and red markers stabbed into London like wounds. Walter spoke with clean speed. Multiple incidents: East End, South Bank, 2 underground stations, and a hospital. Saras felt her stomach drop. A hospital. Integra's eyes did not flicker. They want civilians. They want panic. Alucard lounged against the wall, hands in his pockets, smiling like this was a holiday. How thoughtful, Alucard said. They're inviting us everywhere. Rimuru stood near the table, quiet. He had asked for a meeting the day before. Integra had stared at him like he was insane. Walter had politely tried to explain that Hellsing did not do meetings. Rimuru had still made a plan anyway. A basic one. Evacuation routes, barrier usage, how to reduce crossfire. Simple steps that saved lives. Now those steps were about to be tested. Integra pointed at the hospital marker. Victoria, you go there with a team. Saras nodded fast. Yes, ma'am. Integra's gaze moved to Rimuru. You will remain here. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. People will die. Integra's tone stayed even. People will die either way. If you walk into a trap and they capture you, more will die later. Rimuru held her gaze. Then send me where you think the trap is. Let me take the hit instead of civilians. Alucard chuckled softly. Bold. Walter watched Integra carefully. Saras held her breath. Integra's cigarette burned down. She crushed it out. Fine, Integra said. You will deploy, but you will follow orders." Rimuru nodded once. "Agreed." Alucard's grin widened. "Now it's fun." Integra's eyes turned to Alucard. "You will not treat this as entertainment." Alucard's smile did not change. "I'll treat it as whatever it is." That was the closest thing to honesty he offered. Saris arrived at the hospital with her team and felt the air turn bad before she even saw the first ghoul. The front doors were smashed. A security guard lay on the steps, throat torn out. The smell of blood was so strong, it felt like it coated her tongue. Inside, screams echoed down the halls. Saris moved fast, boots slipping on spilled IV fluid. A nurse ran past her, crying, hands covered in red. "Go!" Saris shouted. "Get out!" A ghoul burst through a doorway and tackled a man in a wheelchair. The man's shout cut off into wet, choking sounds. Saris fired and dropped the ghoul, but another one slammed into her from the side and sent her into the wall. Pain flared in her shoulder. She growled and pushed back, strength surging the way it did when her blood remembered what she was now. She snapped the ghoul's neck with a hard twist. But there were too many. They came from stairwells, from elevators, from supply closets, like they had been placed there ahead of time. Saris felt fear crawl up her spine. This was planned. Her radio crackled. "Victoria, status!" Saris panted. "Overrun! We're evacuating as fast as we can." A scream rose from a children's ward. Saris ran toward it. She turned a corner and saw a ghoul dragging a little boy by the ankle. The boy's fingers clawed at the floor. His face was wet with tears. Saris raised her rifle. The ghoul lifted its head and smiled with a mouth full of blood. Then something slammed into it from the side and pinned it to the wall. Not a bullet. A clear, invisible force, like a giant hand. The ghoul's body pressed flat. It hissed and snapped, trapped. Rimuru stepped into the hallway. He looked small, calm, like he belonged in a school, not a slaughterhouse. Behind him, the air shimmered as a wide barrier sealed off the hall, cutting the ghouls away from fleeing nurses and patients. Saris stared. "You're here." Rimuru glanced at her, eyes steady. "I chose the place with the most civilians." Saris felt a sharp rush of relief she did not want to admit. Rimuru walked toward the pinned ghoul and placed his hand on it. The ghoul sank into his body and vanished. Saris swallowed. "You keep doing that." Rimuru's voice stayed gentle. "It's the safest way." Saris stared at him. "For who?" Rimuru looked down the hall where the boy was sobbing. "For them." He turned and walked toward the children's ward. Saris followed. Inside, chaos ruled. Beds overturned, curtains ripped down. A doctor tried to shield 2 kids with his own body. Rimuru raised his hand, and the room changed. A soft barrier formed around the children like a bubble. Ghouls slammed into it and bounced back, snarling. Saris shot the ones that got too close, but Rimuru didn't just block. He shaped the barriers into lanes. He pushed ghouls into corners. He sealed doors with simple gestures. He turned the room into a controlled space like a chessboard. Then the real trap arrived. A creature stepped into the doorway. It looked like a vampire, but wrong. Its muscles were too dense. Its skin was stitched in places like a bad repair job. Its eyes were calm, not hungry. It stared at Rimuru, then smiled like it understood him. The doctor's voice came through a speaker somewhere, tinny and pleased. "Absorb it," the voice said. "Go on, learn." Saris spun, trying to find the source. Rimuru did not move. He stared at the modified creature, analyzing. Raphael's voice was fast in his mind. Alert. Target contains foreign structure. High probability of internal contamination attempt. Suggest isolate. Suggest seal. Rimuru's face stayed neutral, but his body tensed. Saras whispered. "What is that?" Rimuru answered softly. "A bait." The modified vampire lunged. It moved with speed close to Saras's, maybe more. It hit the barrier and did not bounce back like the ghouls. It dug its fingers into the invisible wall and started tearing at it, like it could peel reality open. Saras's eyes widened. "It's breaking through." Rimuru stepped forward and changed tactics instantly. He did not thicken the barrier. He made a second barrier behind it, then a third, forming a tight box around the creature. It slammed into the first wall, broke it, hit the second, broke it, hit the third. And then Rimuru shrank the box like closing a fist. The creature roared. The air shook. It tried to regenerate around the pressure, pushing flesh outward, growing spikes and extra limbs like it was trying to become something else. Rimuru's expression stayed focused. "You're not a person," he said quietly. "You're a weapon." He raised his hand. A dark, smooth seal formed over the box, like a lid snapping shut. The creature's roar became muffled. The box stopped shaking. Saras stared. "You sealed it." Rimuru nodded. "I can store it. Study it later. Safely." The doctor's voice hissed from the speaker. "How dull." Rimuru turned his head slightly, listening. "You planned this. You used sick humans as cover." There was a pause, then a soft laugh through the speaker. "Yes," the doctor said. "This world is built on corpses. You will learn." Rimuru's eyes hardened for the first time Saras had seen. Not rage. Something colder. Something like disappointment. "I already learned," Rimuru said. He raised his hand again. The speakers popped and died, as if the power inside the walls got tired of being used. Saras blinked. "How did you?" Rimuru did not answer. He moved. He opened the barrier around the kids just enough to let them run. He guided them like a shepherd. Calm voice, simple instructions. "Stay close. Follow her," he told them, pointing at Saras. Saras swallowed and nodded. "Come on. Now." They ran. Behind them, ghouls poured into the hall again, faster now, like the attack was getting worse. Rimuru widened his barriers in a wave, pushing the ghouls back without crushing them into paste. He kept them away from the fleeing patients. It was mercy, but it was also control, and it took effort. Saras could see it in the way Rimuru kept checking angles, adjusting walls, changing lanes. He was doing 10 jobs at once. Then the roof shook. A loud boom hit the hospital, like something heavy landed on it. Saras's radio crackled again, full of shouting from other teams. "East End is burning! Underground station is lost! We need support!" Saras's heart sank. They were being hit everywhere. Rimuru's eyes lifted toward the ceiling like he could see through it. Raphael spoke in his mind. Multiple simultaneous fronts. Suggest prioritize largest civilian cluster. Recommend rapid relocation. Rimuru clenched his hand. Outside, the sky lit up red for a second, like a flare. Saras saw it through a broken window and felt dread. "Alucard," she whispered. Rimuru glanced at her. "He's fighting?" Saras nodded, voice tight. "He's probably enjoying it." Rimuru's mouth flattened. "That's a problem." They got the last of the kids out the back exit. The cold night air hit Saras like a slap. Sirens screamed in the distance. Fires painted orange shapes on the clouds. A ghoul pack rushed them from the alley. Saras raised her rifle. Rimuru stepped forward. He did not just block them this time. He opened his palm, and the ground under the ghouls turned slick and soft, like it lost its strength. They slipped and fell into a shallow pit Rimuru shaped in seconds. No spikes, no crushing, just containment. Then he sealed the pit with a barrier lid. Saras stared. "You're trapping them." Rimuru nodded. "We can't save them by killing them." Saras's voice trembled. Can we save them at all? Rimuru looked at the sealed pit, eyes thoughtful. If I can understand what changed them, maybe. Saras heard the hope in his voice and felt something painful twist in her chest. Hope was dangerous here. A sharp whistle cut the air above them. Something fell from the sky, not a bomb. A man. He landed on the street like a spear, coat snapping, hair wild, grin wide. Alucard stood up slowly, covered in blood that was not his. Behind him, a pile of dead ghouls lay scattered like trash. He looked at Rimuru with bright, hungry eyes. You're busy. Rimuru met his gaze. Civilians? Alucard's grin widened. Yes, how sweet. Then a new presence hit the street like a blade sliding out of a sheath. A tall man stepped into the light, wearing a priest's coat. His eyes were sharp, his smile was fierce, not happy. Alexander Anderson. Saras's blood ran cold. Anderson pointed at Rimuru like he was pointing at a sin. Demon. Rimuru's face stayed calm, but Saras saw his body shift subtly. Ready. Alucard laughed, loud and delighted. Oh, this is perfect. Anderson's voice rose, strong and clear. In the name of God, I will kill you. Rimuru looked at him and spoke like a leader addressing a soldier. I didn't come here to fight you, Rimuru said. People are dying. Help me stop the outbreak. Anderson's smile turned sharp. The outbreak is you. He threw his first blade. It flashed silver in the streetlight and cut straight through Rimuru's shoulder, and then stopped, because Rimuru's body split like water and reformed instantly. No blood, no pain, just a clean correction. Saras's eyes widened. Rimuru did not even look offended. He looked tired. Okay, Rimuru said quietly. So you're not here to talk? Anderson launched forward, fast as a bullet. Alucard leaned back, watching like a fan at a match. Saras raised her rifle, caught between fear and duty. Rimuru raised one hand, not to kill, to control the space. A barrier snapped into place between Anderson and the fleeing civilians, cutting the street in half. Anderson hit it hard, holy blades sparking against invisible force. Rimuru stepped sideways, keeping his eyes on Anderson, voice still calm. If you want me, Rimuru said, then you don't get to use them. Anderson snarled like a man who hated being reminded of rules. He drove his blades again and again into the barrier, trying to break through. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. Saras realized the truth. This was not going to be a normal fight. This was going to be a fight where Rimuru tried not to kill, and where everyone else in this world believed killing was the only real answer. Above them, somewhere far away, cameras watched. Millennium collected footage. Iscariot collected anger. Hellsing collected problems. And London, bleeding and burning, finally noticed that a new power had arrived. A power that did not fit the rules. And that made it the most dangerous thing of all. Anderson hit the invisible wall like he meant to break the world with his hands. His holy blades flashed. Each strike made bright sparks in the air, as if the barrier had bones, and he was cutting them. The street shook with the sound. Saras stood back, rifle raised, and could not pick a clean shot. Anderson moved too fast. Rimuru did not move like a man at all. He flowed. He shifted. He was always a step to the side of danger. Alucard stayed behind them, smiling, like he was waiting for the best part. Rimuru kept his eyes on Anderson. His voice stayed even. Stop, Rimuru said. You're wasting time. People are dying. And you're the reason, Anderson roared. Anderson drove both blades in again. The barrier bent for the first time, like a clear wall pushed by a truck. Saras felt her breath catch. Rimuru's hand lifted, slow, and the barrier changed shape. It stopped being a flat wall. It became a curved dome that pushed the force down and away. Anderson's blade slid off and bit into the pavement instead. Anderson ripped them free and spun. He hurled another blade at Rimuru's face. Rimuru did not dodge. His head simply turned to liquid for half a second. The blade passed through, missing by being allowed to pass. Rimuru's face reformed at once, calm, undamaged. Sarah stared. If Rimuru wanted to end this, he could. She could feel it in the way the air seemed to obey him, but he kept choosing the harder path. He was fighting the fight, and also fighting himself. Anderson lunged again, but this time he did not target Rimuru. He aimed for Saras. Saras's eyes widened. She raised her rifle. Rimuru moved. A thin barrier snapped between Saras and the priest, like a sheet of hard air placed right in time. Anderson slammed into it and skidded back, boots scraping on wet stone. Alucard laughed, sharp and pleased. "Now that's rude, Father." Anderson's eyes cut to Alucard for a split second, hatred burning. Vampire filth. Alucard's grin grew wider. "That's me." Rimuru's voice came again, firmer. "Enough." The air around Anderson tightened. It was not a crush. It was a hold, like invisible hands locking his elbows and knees. Anderson snarled and strained. His body shook with effort. He forced one arm to move. His fingers dug into his coat. He pulled out a paper charm, covered in writing Saras couldn't read, and slammed it onto the barrier. The barrier flared. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. He did not look scared. He looked interested, like he had just found a new kind of tool. Inside Rimuru's mind, Raphael's voice was quick and clean. Report. Holy interference. Barrier integrity reduced. Suggest relocate conflict away from civilians. Suggest non-lethal containment. Rimuru inhaled once. The barrier dome did not break. Instead, it opened at the top like a lid, and the street under Anderson shifted. The ground turned slick, then dipped, guiding Anderson backward and down the road like a moving walkway. Anderson fought it, boots sliding, but Rimuru was not pushing him into a wall. He was pushing him away from the hospital, away from the fleeing families, away from the packed side streets. Saras realized what Rimuru was doing. He was choosing the battlefield. Anderson saw it too. His eyes widened with sudden anger. "You dare!" Anderson shouted. "I'm protecting them," Rimuru said. "If you want me, come for me." Anderson ripped another charm free and hurled it. It stuck to the street in front of Rimuru and burst into bright light, like a flash grenade made of faith. Saras flinched. Rimuru did not. When the light faded, Rimuru stood in the same spot, eyes steady. A barrier lens had formed in front of him for a second, filtering the blast like it was nothing. Alucard's laugh became quieter. His eyes were still bright, but now there was a hint of respect, the way a predator respects another predator that knows when not to bite. Anderson's radio crackled under his coat. A voice came through, sharp and controlled. "Anderson, withdraw." Anderson's teeth clenched. "Maxwell." "Withdraw," the voice repeated. "This is not your stage." Anderson shook with rage. He stared at Rimuru like he wanted to carve the word demon into him. Rimuru held the stare back. "I'm not your enemy," Rimuru said again, quieter now. "But I won't let you hurt people to reach me." Anderson's chest rose and fell fast. For a moment, Saras thought he would ignore the order and attack anyway. Then a small sound cut through the chaos. A child crying. A boy stood at the end of the street, barefoot, shaking, looking at the bodies and the fire, like his brain could not understand what his eyes saw. Anderson's gaze flicked to him. Just once. That single look was not rage. It was something else. Something human. Anderson snapped his eyes back to Rimuru, furious at himself for even glancing. He spat onto the street. "The world is sick," he snarled. "And you are one more disease." Then he turned, coat snapping, and ran into the dark. Saras let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Alucard clicked his tongue. "Chai, called away. Poor father." Rimuru watched the place where Anderson vanished, face unreadable. Sarah stepped closer. "You could have—" "I know," Rimuru said, cutting her off gently. He looked down the street at the sealed pit where the ghouls were trapped, and at the hospital behind them, where sirens still screamed. "I could end him," Rimuru said. "But if I do that, what happens next?" Saras didn't answer. She didn't have one, because she understood the real problem now. This world did not ask if you were good. It asked if you were useful or dead. The next morning, London pretended it had not happened. Police reports said gas explosions. News anchors said riots. Officials asked citizens to stay calm, as if calm was a switch you could flip. But the internet did not pretend. Clips spread. A clear wall stopping a mob. A blue figure moving like water. A red-coated man laughing in the rain. A priest with blades, attacking the blue figure like he was fighting the devil. Hellsing teams crushed what they could. Phones disappeared. Accounts vanished. People were visited at night by quiet men in suits. Still, a few videos slipped through like smoke. At Hellsing Manor, Sir Integra Hellsing sat at her desk with 2 ashtrays full and a phone pressed to her ear. Her voice stayed calm, but the air around her felt like a blade. "No," Integra said. "You will not send soldiers onto my grounds." A voice on the other end argued. Integra listened, eyes cold. "No," she repeated. "If you want to discuss oversight, you come to me." "I don't come to you." She ended the call without saying goodbye. Walter stood nearby, posture perfect. "The round table is anxious." Integra lit another cigarette. "They are always anxious. They simply have a new reason." Walter nodded once. "And Iscariot is moving." Integra's eyes narrowed. "Of course they are." She exhaled smoke slowly, then spoke the next name like a warning. "And Millennium?" Walter's mouth tightened. "We have signs of coordination in the attacks. It fits their style." Integra tapped Ash, steady. "Then the war has changed shape." A knock came at the door. Walter opened it. Sarah stepped in. Her face looked tired. Her uniform had dried blood on it. Not hers. Rimuru walked behind her, calm and clean, as if he had slept well. Which he had not. Integra's eyes went to Rimuru. "You disobeyed my first order." Rimuru did not flinch. "You sent me. I followed your mission. I protected civilians." Integra's gaze sharpened. "And you fought Iscariot." Rimuru's voice stayed even. "They attacked me." Sarah shifted, uneasy. "Ma'am, he didn't escalate. He kept the fighting away from civilians." Integra did not look at Saras. She kept looking at Rimuru. "You are drawing predators," Integra said. "They will not stop until they know what you are." Rimuru nodded. "Then we should decide what I am to you." Alucard's voice drifted from the shadows, amused. "A toy." Integra's eyes snapped toward the corner. "Alucard." Alucard stepped out with his lazy smile. "What?" he asked. Rimuru looked at Integra. "I want to help, but not as a chained animal. I need a role." "Clear rules." Integra's eyebrows rose slightly. "You want rules?" Rimuru nodded. Walter's gaze flicked, almost a hint of humor. He had seen monsters ask for many things. He had not seen one ask for a policy. Integra took a slow drag. "This is not a government office." Rimuru's mouth twitched. I noticed. He pulled a small folded sheet of paper from his coat. It looked out of place in his hand, like a child holding homework in a room full of guns. "I made an incident plan," Rimuru said, For outbreaks, evacuation lines, safe zones. Who moves where? Integra stared at the paper, as if it might bite her. Saras leaned forward, curious despite herself. Alucard laughed softly. He brought notes. Rimuru looked at him. Yes, because people keep dying. Integra held out 2 fingers. Walter took the paper from Rimuru and placed it on Integra's desk. Integra read the first few lines. Her face did not change, but the silence grew heavier. Then she set the paper down. This is competent, Integra said. It sounded almost like an insult. Rimuru nodded. Good. Integra's eyes stayed sharp. If you stay here, you stay under my authority. If you act, you do so as part of my organization, not as a wandering god. Rimuru's voice softened. I'm not a god. Alucard's smile widened. Aren't you? Rimuru ignored him and met Integra's gaze. I can accept command in operations, but if your command is to sacrifice civilians to make a point, I won't do it. Integra leaned back, cigarette ember glowing. And if your mercy gets my people killed? Rimuru did not dodge the question. Then I'll take responsibility. Saras felt the words land. They weren't heroic, they were heavy. Integra studied Rimuru for a long moment. Finally, she nodded once. Fine. Provisional status. You work with Hellsing. You do not act without notifying Walter or myself. You will be monitored. Rimuru's shoulders loosened. That's fair. Integra's voice hardened. And you do not consume humans. Rimuru nodded. Agreed. Alucard clicked his tongue. Boring. Integra's eyes cut to him. Leave. Alucard's grin stayed, but he obeyed. Slowly, like a cat walking away from a meal it plans to return to. When the door shut, the room felt less dangerous. Not safe, just less like a mouthful of teeth. Integra's eyes returned to Rimuru. Now tell me what you really are, not the speech version. Rimuru inhaled once. He spoke in clean beats. Simple and honest. I died as a human, he said. I woke up as a slime in another world. I got strong because I can analyze and learn from what I take in. I met people who feared monsters. I met monsters who feared people. I built a place where both could live. Integra watched without blinking. Rimuru continued. I became a leader because someone had to stop the killing cycle. I don't enjoy slaughter. I enjoy building. Saras felt a strange twist in her chest at that last word. Building. It sounded like hope. Integra's voice stayed cold. And if your building requires violence? Rimuru nodded. Then I use it, but I don't worship it. Walter spoke, quiet. And what brought you here? Rimuru's eyes flicked up, thoughtful. A tear in space, a door. I didn't open it. Inside Rimuru's mind, Raphael added a clean note. Unknown portal phenomenon, likely external manipulation. Rimuru didn't say that part out loud. Not yet. Integra leaned forward. Then someone did. Rimuru met her gaze. That's what I think. Integra's jaw tightened. Then we have a new problem. Sarah swallowed. We already have too many. Integra didn't deny it. She simply stood. Meeting, Integra said, tone sharp. War room, now. Rimuru blinked. You're calling it a meeting. Integra glared at him. Don't push your luck. Saras covered her mouth for half a second. Rimuru's mouth twitched like he wanted to laugh and stopped himself. Walter's eyes softened for a fraction of a moment. Then the manor moved like a machine again. Later that night, Rimuru stood on a balcony outside the manor, looking over the grounds. London's distant glow stained the low clouds. Somewhere out there, people were sleeping while monsters planned their next meal. Sarah stepped out quietly and leaned on the rail a few feet away. She didn't look at Rimuru at first. Rimuru spoke without turning. "You're not sleeping." Sarah snorted. "Neither are you." Rimuru nodded. "True." Sarah hesitated, then asked the question that had been chewing at her since the hospital. "Why didn't you kill him?" she said. Rimuru didn't pretend he didn't know who she meant. "Anderson?" Sarah nodded once. Rimuru's voice stayed soft. "Because he thinks he's doing the right thing." Sarah scoffed. "He tried to kill you?" "Yes," Rimuru said. "And he would do it again." Sarah gripped the rail tighter. "So why?" Rimuru finally turned his head to look at her. His eyes were calm, but there was a tiredness behind them. "In my world," Rimuru said, "I learned that if I kill every enemy, I eventually become the thing everyone fears. Then the fighting never ends. It just changes names." Sarah swallowed. "Here, the fighting doesn't end anyway." Rimuru looked back toward the city. "Maybe. But I can still choose what kind of person I am while it happens." Sarah's voice dropped. "You keep saying choose." Rimuru nodded. "Because it matters." Sarah's throat tightened. She stared at the sky, like it was easier than staring at Rimuru. "What if you stop choosing?" she whispered. Rimuru's voice stayed gentle. "Then I hope someone stops me." Sarah's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Rimuru nodded once. "That's why I like leaders like Integra. She doesn't worship power. She fears it. That fear keeps her sharp." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "She fears everything." Rimuru smiled slightly. "Good. Fear is useful if you don't let it own you." Sarah fell quiet. Rimuru added, "And you?" Sarah blinked. "Me?" Rimuru looked at her with a calm honesty that made her want to look away. "You're afraid too. But you still ran toward those kids." Sarah's jaw clenched. "I'm not brave. I don't want to be a monster." Rimuru's voice stayed warm. "Then keep choosing." Sarah stared at him, then looked down. Her voice was small. "Sometimes I feel hungry." Rimuru didn't react with shock. He didn't lean away. He didn't look disgusted. He simply nodded. "That makes sense." Sarah's eyes snapped up. "That's it? That's your response?" Rimuru smiled a little. "You didn't ask to become what you are, but you can still decide how you live." Sarah's hand shook slightly on the rail. "And if I fail?" Rimuru's voice stayed steady. "Then we catch you. We don't let you fall alone." Sarah looked like she might cry. She swallowed it down like she had swallowed everything else in her life. Somewhere behind them, a low laugh drifted from the dark window. Alucard stood inside, watching them like they were insects he found interesting. Rimuru felt him there. He didn't turn. He just spoke louder, clear enough for Alucard to hear. "Some people want the world to stay broken," Rimuru said, "because it's fun for them." Alucard's laugh faded into silence. For the first time, Sarah wondered if Rimuru had just done something even harder than fighting. She wondered if he had challenged Alucard's boredom. In a far room with clean lights and polished floors, Enrico Maxwell watched the same leaked clips on repeat. He paused on the frame where Rimuru's barrier held back a crowd of ghouls. Maxwell's smile was bright. "Look at him," he murmured. "Saving them." A priest beside him whispered, "A demon pretending." Maxwell tilted his head, eyes gleaming. "Or a miracle waiting to be claimed." He leaned back and clasped his hands. "Prepare a message," Maxwell said. "Not for Hellsing, for the public." The priest frowned. "We don't have the authority to address England." Maxwell's smile widened. "Authority is taken. Not given." He tapped the screen again. "We will not fight this creature with bullets. We will fight it with a story." He looked up, eyes sharp now. "We will make the world afraid of mercy," Maxwell said. And we will call that fear faith. Somewhere even darker, in a place full of machines and laughter that sounded like war, the Major watched too. He leaned forward, hands clasped, delighted. "A kind God," the Major said. "How rare." The doctor adjusted his glasses. He avoids absorbing the wrong bait. He seals. He controls space. The Major chuckled. "Then we don't give him a simple bait." He stood and walked slowly, as if he was pacing on a stage. "We give him a choice," the Major said. "A choice so ugly that kindness looks like weakness." The doctor's mouth twitched. "And if he still chooses kindness?" The Major's eyes shone. "Then we punish it." He turned back to the screen and smiled like a child watching fireworks. "Because war," the Major whispered, "is the best test." The next day, as Hellsing dug into reports and maps, Rimuru walked through the manor halls with a clipboard Walter had reluctantly handed him. It was not magical. It was just wood and paper. Rimuru held it like it mattered. Saras passed him and stared. "What is that?" Rimuru's eyes brightened. "A schedule." Saras blinked. "A schedule." "Yes," Rimuru said. "Training times, patrol times, rest times. Also a list of who knows what, so we don't repeat the same briefing 10 times. Sarah stared like she didn't know whether to laugh or scream. "We're in a vampire war." Rimuru nodded seriously. "Exactly. Structure helps." Saras muttered, "You're insane." Rimuru smiled. "Thank you." Walter cleared his throat politely. "Master Rimuru, Integra requests you in the war room." Rimuru nodded and walked faster. Saras followed, shaking her head. Behind them, a maid whispered to another, "Is that the new thing?" The other whispered back, "He brought paperwork." Even fear had to pause for that. In the war room, Integra pointed at a map with a cigarette. "We are dealing with coordinated strikes," she said, "not random outbreaks. Someone is placing nests. Someone is pushing pressure points." Walter added, "We found evidence of transport. Trucks, sewers, safe houses." Rimuru stepped closer to the map. His eyes tracked routes and patterns fast. He didn't need to pretend to think slowly. Inside his mind, Raphael spoke like a clean knife. Pattern recognition, likely staging corridors. Recommend inspection of underground transit and sewer hubs. Rimuru nodded. "Underground," he said aloud. "That's where they're moving." Integra's eyes narrowed. "And you can..." "What?" "Sense it." Rimuru hesitated. "I can detect life, magic, energy, things like that." Integra stared. "Magic." Rimuru nodded. "In my world, it's normal." Integra's voice stayed cold. "In mine, it's a problem." Rimuru didn't argue. "Then let me use it to solve your problem." Integra tapped the map once. "You will not go alone." Rimuru nodded. "Saras?" Saras stiffened. "Me?" Integra's gaze didn't move. "You have seen him in the field. You have instincts. And I want eyes I trust." Saras swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Rimuru smiled at Saras, small and grateful. Saras did not return the smile, but she didn't look away either. They entered the underground that night. London's surface felt loud. The underground felt like a secret mouth. Rimuru walked beside Saras down an old maintenance stairwell. Their footsteps echoed. Water dripped somewhere far away. The air smelled like rust and old mold. Saras kept her rifle up, light attached, beam cutting through the dark. Rimuru didn't need a flashlight, but he didn't say that. He let Saras lead the way. He respected her role. "You're really doing it," Saras said under her breath. Rimuru blinked. "Doing what?" Saras gestured around. "This. Hunting in tunnels with a vampire cop." Rimuru smiled slightly. "You're not a cop." Saras scoffed. Tell that to the paperwork you're making. Rimuru chuckled once. I like clear systems. Saras shook her head. This place breaks systems. Rimuru's voice stayed calm. Then we build stronger ones. They reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. The air felt colder there, and not just because of water. Rimuru stopped. Saras froze. What? Rimuru lifted his hand slightly, his eyes focused, listening to things Saras could not hear. There, Rimuru whispered. That direction. Saras frowned. You're sure? Rimuru nodded. Something wrong. They moved quietly down the left tunnel. At first, Saras heard only dripping. Then she heard faint scratching. Then she smelled blood. They came to a wide space where old tracks ended. A maintenance room had been turned into a nest. Blankets, torn clothes, empty blood bags, human IDs scattered like trash. Saras felt her stomach tighten. This was a staging area, she whispered. Rimuru crouched and touched the ground. His face changed. Not fear. Focus. Something opened here, Rimuru said. Not a big door, a small tear. Saras swallowed. Like the crack in the sky? Rimuru nodded slowly. Smaller. Dirtier. Raphael's voice rose in his mind. Alert. Residual spatial distortion. Unstable. Unknown origin. Saras raised her rifle again. We should tell Integra. Rimuru started to nod. Then the air behind them shifted. A voice spoke from the dark, like it had always been there. Hi. Saras spun. Her light snapped onto a small figure standing on the tracks. A boy. He looked harmless. Short. Pale. Wide eyes. Hands in his pockets. He smiled. Saras's blood ran cold, because she had seen that smile in files, in nightmares. Schrödinger, Saras whispered. The boy tilted his head. Oh, you know my name. Rimuru stared at him, eyes narrowing. Schrödinger took 1 step forward, and then he was suddenly 2 steps closer, without crossing the space between. Saras's grip tightened. How did you? Schrödinger shrugged. I'm here. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. He could feel it now. This boy wasn't moving. Reality was moving around him. Rimuru spoke carefully. You're not human. Schrödinger smiled wider. Neither are you. Rimuru's voice stayed calm. Why are you here? Schrödinger rocked on his heels like a kid waiting for candy. To see you, Saras snapped. Stop playing games. Schrödinger's smile didn't fade. His eyes stayed bright and empty. This isn't a game. It's a door. Rimuru's body tensed. Schrödinger lifted a finger and pointed at Rimuru's chest. You fell through it. But doors open both ways. Rimuru's voice dropped. You know who opened it. Schrödinger blinked slowly. Maybe. Saras stepped forward. Answer him. Schrödinger's head tilted. You're tense. You're hungry. You're scared. Saras flinched like he slapped her. Rimuru shifted slightly between Saras and the boy, protective without making a show of it. Schrödinger's smile softened. Don't worry. I'm not here to hurt you. Rimuru's eyes narrowed further. That's not comforting. Schrödinger giggled. It should be. Then, without warning, the tunnel lights flickered. The air rippled. And the nest woke up. From the side room, shapes crawled out. Not normal ghouls. Their movements were wrong, too smooth, too coordinated. Their bodies were stretched in places, like they had been pulled and stitched by invisible hands. Their eyes were calm, not wild. Saras raised her rifle. What are those? Rimuru's voice turned tight. Not just infection. The first one lunged. Rimuru raised a barrier. The creature hit it and didn't bounce away. It pressed into it like it was testing, like it understood. Saras fired. The bullets tore flesh. The creature fell. Then its body twitched and stood again, rebuilding itself in seconds. Saras swore under her breath. It's regenerating. Schrödinger watched, smiling, like he was enjoying a show. Rimuru kept his gaze on the creatures. This is your doing. Schrödinger shrugged. Not mine. I'm just present. Rimuru didn't have time to argue. 3 more rushed. He changed the battlefield fast. Barriers snapped into a maze. Lanes formed. Walls rose. The creatures were funneled into separate spaces, split from each other, like prey being sorted. Saras moved with him, taking shots at joints, slowing them down. She stayed behind the walls Rimuru set, using them like cover. Good, Rimuru said, quick and simple. Keep them pinned, Saras glared. Don't coach me, Rimuru's mouth twitched. Sorry, habit. One creature slammed a fist into the barrier and cracked it. Saras's eyes widened. They can break your walls. Rimuru's voice stayed calm, but his focus sharpened. Then I don't rely on one wall. He layered 3 barriers. The creature broke the first, then the second. The third held. Rimuru's hand lifted, and the third barrier turned into a seal, locking the creature in a tight cube. It thrashed. It roared. Rimuru did not absorb it. He studied it. Raphael's voice came quick. Analysis. Target contains foreign pattern. High risk of conceptual contamination. Recommend avoid direct absorption. Rimuru nodded faintly. I know. Saras blinked. You're talking to that voice again. Rimuru didn't answer. Another creature rushed Saras from above, crawling on the ceiling like a spider. Saras lifted her rifle, but it dropped right on her. Saras stumbled back, falling hard. The creature pinned her shoulder and snapped at her neck. Saras felt a flash of panic. Not fear of dying. Fear of tasting its blood by accident. Rimuru moved. His body blurred, and the creature was yanked off Saras by an invisible force. It slammed into a wall and stuck there like it had been glued. Rimuru stood over Saras, expression sharp now. You okay? He asked. Saras panted. Fine. Rimuru nodded. Good, his tone said. Don't lie to me in the middle of a fight. Saras hated that it worked. Schrödinger clapped slowly. Wow, very heroic. Rimuru snapped his eyes to him. Get out of here. Schrödinger smiled, unbothered. Can't. Rimuru's jaw tightened. Then stop watching. Schrödinger's smile widened. Also can't. Rimuru turned back to the fight. The last creature stopped rushing and started thinking. It backed into the nest room and grabbed something off the floor. A human body. Still alive. Saras's heart lurched. Hostage! The creature pressed its mouth near the man's throat, like it was making a point. Rimuru froze for half a second. That half second was the trap. A thin needle shot out from the creature's wrist and stabbed into the man's neck. The man's eyes rolled back, his body jerked. Then he stood, suddenly calm, like a puppet pulled upright. Saras whispered, No. Rimuru's voice dropped. They're turning people on purpose. Schrödinger hummed, pleased. Pressure. Choices. Isn't it interesting? Rimuru's hand lifted. A barrier snapped around the man and the creature together, sealing them in a bubble away from Saras. Rimuru spoke, voice steady. Saras, move back. Saras hesitated. He's alive! Rimuru nodded. I know. He stared at the bubble, eyes focused, and for the first time, Saras saw Rimuru look truly angry. Not loud anger, controlled anger. Raphael, Rimuru murmured inside his mind. Ready. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. The bubble became layered. Like a clear onion. Within it, the creature's movement slowed, as if the air itself turned thick. Rimuru spoke softly, almost to himself. If you want me to become a monster, you picked the wrong person. Then he did something Saras didn't expect. He didn't attack the creature's body. He attacked the connection. The thin needle line that linked the creature's influence to the man's nerves shimmered under Rimuru's senses. Rimuru's hand turned slightly, like he was turning a key. The line snapped. The man collapsed, breathing hard, alive. The creature screamed, not in pain, but in frustration, like it had just lost a game. Rimuru's voice stayed calm. Now you. He sealed the creature in a tight cube and set it aside like a dangerous box. Sarah stared at the man. You saved him. Rimuru nodded. Yes. Sarah swallowed. How? Rimuru's eyes stayed sharp. I can analyze patterns. This wasn't just blood. It was control. Saris looked at Schrödinger. And you're here to help them. Schrödinger blinked innocently. I'm here to be here. Rimuru took one slow step toward Schrödinger. The air around Rimuru shifted. Not violent, just heavy, like pressure building. Schrödinger smiled wide. Are you going to eat me? Rimuru's eyes narrowed. I don't think I can. Schrödinger giggled. Probably not. Rimuru's voice turned colder. Then tell me this. Did you bring me here? Schrödinger's smile softened into something almost kind. I didn't open the door, he said, but I like that you walked through it. Rimuru stared. Schrödinger added, You make people reveal themselves. Saras's skin crawled. Rimuru looked at the sealed cubes and the injured man and the scattered IDs on the floor. Then he looked back up. Schrödinger was gone. Not moved, not fled. Just not there anymore. The air felt normal again, but the space still felt wrong, like it remembered him. Saras whispered, I hate him. Rimuru nodded. Same. He turned to the rescued man. Can you walk? The man nodded weakly, shaking. Rimuru helped him stand and guided him toward the exit. Saras followed, eyes scanning the dark. As they climbed the stairs back toward the surface, Saras's radio crackled. Walter's calm voice came through, tight at the edges. Miss Victoria. Master Rimuru. Report. Saras answered. We found a nest. Not normal. They regenerate. They think. And Schrödinger was there. There was a pause. Walter's voice stayed controlled. But Saras could hear the warning in it. Understood. Return immediately. Saras glanced at Rimuru. Rimuru's face was calm again, but his eyes were sharper than before. He had come into this world trying to build a system. Now he understood something important. The enemy wasn't just trying to kill people, they were trying to shape him. Back at the manor, Integra listened to the report without blinking. When Saras finished, the room stayed silent for 3 full seconds. Then Integra spoke, slow and cold. Schrödinger. Walter nodded. Millennium's wild card. Integra's cigarette ember glowed. And they are testing our newcomer. Rimuru stood straight. They're trying to push me to cross a line. Integra's eyes narrowed. Do you have a line? Rimuru met her gaze. Yes. Alucard's laugh drifted in from the corner. He had appeared without anyone hearing him. Lines are fun, Alucard said. They make good games. Rimuru didn't look at him. This isn't a game. Alucard smiled. To you. Integra's voice cut like a whip. Enough. She turned to Walter. Inform the round table. Tell them the threat is escalating. Tell them Millennium is active and Iscariot is probing. Walter nodded once. Yes, ma'am. Integra's gaze returned to Rimuru. You will continue your protocols. Rimuru blinked. You mean my meeting plans. Integra's eyes narrowed. Do not call them that. Saras almost laughed and stopped herself. Integra continued. But you will also accept something else. This is not a world that rewards mercy. Rimuru's voice stayed calm. I know. Integra leaned forward. Good. Because now it gets worse. She slapped a folder onto the table. Photos spilled out, a symbol on crates, transport routes, dead drops. Walter spoke, quiet. "We have evidence of government interest in the entity you represent." Rimuru frowned. "Government interest?" Integra's eyes stayed cold. "They want control. They always do." Rimuru's mouth tightened. "I'm not a weapon." Alucard hummed. "Everyone is a weapon. Some just don't like the word." Integra ignored him. That night, the round table did not call. They summoned. The next day, Integra stood in a formal room, facing men and women with hard eyes and clean suits. Walter stood behind her. Saras stood to the side. Rimuru stood quietly, hands at his sides, expression polite. A man with a thin smile spoke first. "This entity is now a national security concern." Rimuru's eyes narrowed slightly at the word, entity. Integra's voice was calm. "He is under Hellsing authority," another voice cut in. "He is not British." Rimuru's voice stayed polite. "Neither are the vampires." That earned a few stiff looks. A woman leaned forward, eyes sharp. "We have video evidence of him stopping outbreaks. We also have video evidence of him fighting a Vatican agent in London." Saras's jaw tightened. Rimuru kept still. Integra spoke. "Iscariot attacked him. Hellsing contained the damage." The man with the thin smile tapped the table. "Containment is not enough. This being changes the balance of power." Rimuru spoke carefully. "I did not come here to change your politics." The man smiled thinly. "But you did." Rimuru's face stayed calm. "Then maybe your politics were fragile." Integra's eyes flicked to Rimuru, a silent warning. "Don't start a war in a meeting." Rimuru held his tongue. The woman continued, voice cool. "We have a proposal. Oversight, joint control, research access." Rimuru felt anger rise, controlled, tight. Integra's voice turned colder. "No." The man frowned. "Lady Hellsing." Integra didn't flinch. "Hellsing is not a lab. My assets are not your property." A third voice spoke, less sure. "If this being turns hostile, we must have a response." Integra's eyes narrowed. "If it turns hostile, you will be dead long before your paperwork catches up." Silence. Rimuru stood there, still, but his presence filled the room anyway. Not by threat, by fact. Finally, the thin smile man leaned back. "Then we will treat him as what he is." Integra's gaze sharpened. "And what is that?" The man's smile returned. "A global variable." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. He understood the meaning at once. Not a person. A problem on a board. Integra's voice stayed ice calm. "He remains with Hellsing." The woman nodded slowly. "For now." Rimuru felt it then. Not a gun aimed at him. A future aimed at him. A future where people would try to cage him, name him, use him, fear him, and justify it as safety. As they left, Saras walked beside Rimuru down the long hallway. She spoke quietly. "Welcome to our world." Rimuru's face stayed calm, but his voice was low. "I've been in politics before," he said. "But this is different." Saras glanced at him. "How?" Rimuru looked ahead, eyes steady. "In my world, people feared monsters because they thought monsters had no hearts." He paused. "Here," Rimuru said, "people fear anything they can't own." Saras didn't have an answer for that. Neither did the world. Not yet. 2 weeks passed, and London did not get kinder. It just got used to bleeding in smaller bursts. In the mornings, Hellsing Manor smelled like coffee, gun oil, and cigarette smoke. Rimuru learned the rhythm fast. Walter moved like a clock. Integra spoke like a blade. Saras tried to look like she was fine, even when she wasn't. Rimuru also learned something else. If you wanted to save lives here, you needed more than power. You needed a plan that could survive fear. So he built one. He turned a small side room into a board. He used maps, pins, and notes. He labeled safe exits. He marked places where outbreaks had happened. He wrote down patterns and times. He tracked rumors too, because rumors moved faster than vehicles. Walter walked in one morning, took one look, and paused. Rimuru looked up from his clipboard. "Good morning." Walter's face stayed polite. "Master Rimuru, you have reorganized the room." "I made it clearer," Rimuru said. Walter's eyes moved across the board. "This resembles a war office." Rimuru nodded. "Yes." Walter cleared his throat very gently. "Lady Integra does not enjoy surprises." Rimuru smiled. "Then tell her it's not a surprise. It's a system." Walter hesitated, then allowed himself a tiny sigh. "I will choose my words carefully." Saris walked in behind Walter, hair still damp from a quick shower, rifle strap over her shoulder. She stared at the board. "You made a schedule chart." Rimuru brightened. "Yes." Saris blinked. "You scheduled patrols?" "Yes." "You scheduled rest?" "Yes." Saris looked pained. "You scheduled team check-in?" Rimuru nodded like this was normal. "It's important." Saris threw her hands up a little. "We are not a football team." Rimuru's smile stayed calm. "You're worse. You're a trauma team with guns." Saris opened her mouth, then shut it. She didn't know what to do with that. Walter looked at the paper that said, "Team check-in" in clear writing. He coughed once. "I will inform Lady Integra," he said. When Walter left, Saris leaned closer to Rimuru and lowered her voice. "She's going to hate this." Rimuru nodded. "Probably." Saris frowned. "Why do it then?" Rimuru's eyes softened. "Because it works." Saris stared at him for a moment, then looked away. "You're going to die from paperwork, not bullets." Rimuru smiled. "That would be embarrassing." That afternoon, Integra did hate it. She stood in the doorway of the boardroom, cigarette in hand. Eyes cutting through the notes like they were insults. "What is this?" she said. "And why is it in my house?" Rimuru stood straight. "A response system." Integra's gaze moved to the team check-in note. Her eyelid twitched once. "A response system," she repeated. Rimuru nodded. "It reduces confusion. It saves minutes. Minutes save lives." Integra took a slow drag. "We have saved lives for a long time without your board?" Rimuru met her eyes. "And many still died." Silence. Integra's eyes stayed sharp, but her voice lowered, controlled. "You are bold." Rimuru nodded. "I'm responsible." Integra stepped closer and scanned the board again. Routes, containment zones, notes about do not engage in crowded spaces unless barriers are ready. She tapped ash into a tray. "This is good." Rimuru relaxed slightly. Integra's gaze snapped back to team check-in. "This is stupid." Rimuru's mouth twitched. "It's 5 minutes." Integra pointed the cigarette like a weapon. "Do not call it a check-in." Rimuru blinked. "What should I call it?" Integra exhaled smoke. "Debrief." Saris, standing by the wall, covered a smile with her hand. Rimuru nodded seriously. "Debrief, understood." Integra turned away. "Walter, if I find another sign in my manner that says, 'Team bonding,' I will shoot it." Rimuru's voice was calm. "It doesn't say team bonding." Integra paused, then glanced back slowly. Rimuru added, "It says morale stability." Integra stared at him for a long second, then walked out without another word. Saris waited until Integra was gone, then whispered, "You're going to get us all killed." Rimuru smiled. "No. I'm going to get you all organized." Saris shook her head, but she wasn't angry. Not really, because in the last 2 weeks the outbreaks had become Manageable. Not solved. Not gone. But contained faster. People were still dying. Just fewer. And when Saras looked at that number in her head, she hated that it made her trust Rimuru a little more, even if she told herself she shouldn't. The first offer came quietly. It arrived as a message inside a dead radio. They had raided a small Millennium stash house near the river. Nothing big, just supplies and notes. Rimuru had sealed a few modified creatures in cubes, like he was stacking dangerous boxes on a shelf. Walter carried the radio to the manor in a metal case. They gathered in the war room, Integra at the head. Walter to her right. Saras near the wall. Alucard in the shadows, smiling. Rimuru standing calm, hands clasped behind his back. Walter set the radio on the table. It activated on its own, Walter said. No external signal we can detect. Integra's eyes narrowed. Then it's a provocation. Rimuru nodded. Or a trap. Alucard chuckled. Or a love letter. The radio crackled. Then a voice came through, clear and cheerful, like a man speaking on stage. "Good evening," the voice said. "Or morning, or whatever time you prefer." Saras's skin crawled. She didn't know the voice, but she hated it already. "I am called the Major," the voice continued. "I would like to congratulate you." Integra didn't move. "On what?" The Major laughed softly. "On being interesting." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. "You arrived," the Major said, "and the world moved. That is rare. Most things live and die without changing anything." Alucard's grin widened. "Flattery." The Major continued, voice warm. "You save people. You build rules. You try to make monsters behave." He paused, like he was savoring it. "How charming," the Major said. "How fragile." Rimuru's voice stayed even. "What do you want?" The Major laughed again. "Direct. I like that." The radio crackled once, then steadied. "I want to offer you purpose," the Major said. "A place in the greatest story this world knows." Integra's eyes tightened. "War." "Yes," the Major said, delighted. "War." Saras felt her stomach twist. She glanced at Rimuru, expecting anger. Rimuru's face stayed calm. The Major's voice dropped slightly, like a man sharing a secret. "You are powerful," he said. "So powerful that only boredom can defeat you." Only emptiness. Rimuru's eyes flicked, just a tiny reaction. The Major caught it anyway. "I can fix that," the Major whispered. "Join me, or oppose me. Either way, you will have meaning. You will have conflict. You will have a reason to wake up." Rimuru spoke softly. "You don't want meaning. You want damage." The Major hummed. "Damage is meaning, if you are honest." Alucard laughed in the shadows, pleased, like someone finally spoke his language. Integra's voice cut in. "You will not have him." The Major laughed. "Lady Hellsing, always so possessive." Rimuru's voice stayed calm. "No. Simple. Clear." The room went quiet for a beat. Then the Major sighed like a man disappointed by a small thing. "Oh," he said. "That is fine. I did not expect you to accept." Saras frowned. "Then why?" The Major continued, cheerful again. This was not the offer. This was the warning. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Warning of what? The Major's voice turned bright, almost excited. "I will put you in front of the world," he said, "and I will ask it to choose what you are." Integra's jaw tightened. "And when the world is afraid," the Major whispered, "it will beg for a leash." The radio clicked. Silence. Saras felt cold. Walter's voice was quiet. "He intends to force a public event." Integra crushed her cigarette into the ashtray hard. "Then we stop him before he stages it." Rimuru stared at the dead radio, face unreadable. Inside his mind, Raphael spoke. High probability. Staged crisis with media exposure. Goal: provoke lethal overreaction or consumption of humans. Rimuru's jaw set. He had saved people in streets and tunnels. Now he had to save them from a story. The second offer arrived with a smile and a cross. It came as a sealed envelope delivered through a channel Integra could not deny without making a political mess. The paper was thick. The ink was expensive. The words were polite. Walter read it once, then handed it to Integra. Integra read it with no expression, then tossed it onto the table. "Maxwell," she said. Sarah stiffened. "What does he want?" Integra's voice was flat. "To meet our guest." Rimuru blinked. "Me?" Integra's eyes narrowed. "He says he wishes to speak with the soul of the creature that appeared." Rimuru's mouth tightened. "He's trying to label me." Alucard's laugh drifted in. "He wants to put you in a church box." Saris looked uneasy. "Maxwell is dangerous." Rimuru nodded. "I can tell." Integra's gaze stayed hard. "We do not attend." Rimuru hesitated. "If we don't, he'll do it anyway. Publicly." Integra stared at him. "You want to walk into Iscariot's hands?" Rimuru kept his voice calm. "I want to remove his excuse." Walter spoke gently. "Lady Integra, it may be useful to hear what he intends." Integra's eyes narrowed. "It may also be suicide," Rimuru said. "If he wants to build fear, refusing him feeds it." Alucard chuckled. "He wants to talk." Integra's jaw tightened, then she stood. "We do not go to Iscariot," Integra said. "If Maxwell wants a meeting, he comes to neutral ground, under my terms." Rimuru nodded. "That's fine." Integra pointed a finger at Rimuru like a warning. "And you will not be pulled into a public display." Rimuru met her gaze. "I won't." The meeting happened 3 days later. Not in a church, not in a government building. In a quiet, controlled room in a hotel that had been emptied by Hellsing influence. Maxwell arrived with a smile too wide for his face. He wore his faith like a suit. Anderson stood behind him, eyes hard, hands relaxed near hidden blades. Sarah stood near Rimuru. Integra sat at the head of the small table like a queen who refused to bow. Maxwell looked at Rimuru like he was looking at a statue that might bleed. "My," Maxwell said softly. "So this is the miracle." Rimuru's voice stayed calm. "I'm not a miracle." Maxwell smiled brighter. "Everyone is something in the eyes of the crowd." Integra's voice was cold. "State your purpose." Maxwell spread his hands. "Peace." Alucard laughed once from the corner. It was not friendly. Maxwell ignored him and leaned toward Rimuru. "You can save people," Maxwell said, voice smooth. "But you will be hated for it. Because you are not one of them." Rimuru watched him closely. "And you want to help me." Maxwell nodded. "Yes." Anderson's eyes tightened like he hated the word. Maxwell continued, gentle. "Be our weapon. Be God's sword. Let us direct you. Then the world will not fear you." Rimuru's face stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened. "That's not peace." Maxwell's smile did not fade. "It is stability." Rimuru shook his head once. "It's control." Maxwell's voice softened, like he was comforting a child. "Without control, power destroys everything." Rimuru replied, "Power destroys when people use it to own others." Maxwell's smile twitched for the first time. Anderson stepped forward half a step, eyes burning. "Demon." Rimuru turned his head slightly toward Anderson. "I remember you looked at a child," Rimuru said quietly. Anderson froze for a fraction of a second. Maxwell's smile returned, sharper. "Do not distract my hound." Rimuru's voice stayed calm. "He's not a hound. He's a man." Anderson's jaw tightened. Maxwell leaned back, eyes gleaming. "You see?" Maxwell said to Integra like she was a fellow politician. "It charms. It builds trust. It plays at humanity." Rimuru's voice turned colder. "I'm not playing." Maxwell stood, still smiling. "Then prove it." Rimuru didn't move. "How?" Maxwell's eyes shone. "Stand with us in public. Speak. Let the world see your obedience." Integra's voice cut in, hard. "No." Maxwell's smile stayed, but his eyes turned flat. "Then you leave me no choice." Rimuru narrowed his eyes. "What are you planning?" Maxwell's smile widened again, bright as a knife. "A sermon," he said. "With a stage." Anderson's hands flexed. Integra stood too, cigarette forgotten. "If you bring your war into my city, Maxwell." Maxwell bowed slightly. "It is already in your city." He turned and walked out, coat flowing behind him like a curtain closing. Anderson lingered for a half-second. He stared at Rimuru with hate. But there was something else buried deep under that hate. A question. Then he left. Saras exhaled slowly. "He's going to make it public." Rimuru nodded. "Yes." Integra's eyes were cold. "Then we stopped the sermon." Rimuru's voice stayed steady. "We stopped the panic." Because he understood now. Stopping bullets was easy compared to stopping fear once it spread. The third offer came at night, with no words and no paper. Rimuru stood on the manor roof, looking out at London's glow. The air was cold and damp. The city looked peaceful from here, which felt like a lie. A voice spoke behind him, lazy and amused. "You're trying so hard." Rimuru didn't turn. "Alucard." Alucard stepped up beside him, hands in pockets, red coat moving in the wind like a flag. "You keep holding back," Alucard said. "You keep building little walls and little plans." Rimuru stayed calm. "They save lives." Alucard smiled. "They delay deaths." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. "You're wrong." Alucard's grin widened. "Am I?" He leaned closer slightly, voice lower. "You could end this," Alucard said. "You could eat the problem, kill the priests, crush Millennium, break the government, become what you already are." Rimuru turned his head, finally looking at him. "And then what?" Alucard's eyes shone. "Then you stop pretending. Then you enjoy it." Rimuru's voice was quiet. "You enjoy it because you're bored." Alucard's smile held, but his eyes tightened. Rimuru continued, calm and clear. "You're strong, but you're empty. You fill it with violence. It doesn't work." Alucard laughed once, sharp. "Careful, slime. You're speaking like you understand me." Rimuru met his gaze. "I understand the shape of it." Alucard leaned back, looking out over the city. "I like you," Alucard said, almost casually. "Because you're strong." Rimuru didn't respond. Alucard added, softer. "And because you still think strength can be clean." Rimuru's voice stayed steady. "Strength can be careful." Alucard smiled again, but it was smaller. "We'll see." Then he vanished into the dark, like he was never there. Rimuru stayed on the roof, breathing slow. Raphael spoke inside him. Incoming event probability increasing. Public staging expected within 48 hours. Rimuru closed his eyes briefly. "Then we'll be ready," he thought. Even if ready was a joke in a world like this. It happened on a Sunday, because Maxwell understood crowds. Trafalgar Square filled by midday. People came because they were scared. People came because they were curious. People came because someone online said there would be proof of monsters. A temporary stage had been built, speakers stacked high. Large screens faced the crowd. Police stood uneasy at the edges, trying to keep order while not admitting what they feared. Hellsing watched from the shadows. Integra sat in a black car a block away, eyes hard, cigar smoke curling in the air. Walter stood beside her, calm but alert. Sarah stood on a nearby rooftop with her rifle, heart pounding, eyes scanning faces. Rimuru stood behind a building corner in human form, coat up, looking like a young person who got lost. But the air around him felt different, heavy, ready. He could sense the crowd like a field of candles, so many fragile flames. He also sensed the traps. Tiny points of wrongness spread through the square, hidden in vans, hidden in sewer grates, hidden in men wearing security badges that weren't real. Raphael's voice was clean. Multiple hostile nodes detected. Likely simultaneous release of modified ghouls. Secondary threat. Iscariot operative presence. Tertiary threat. Government marksman. Suggest barrier first strategy. Rimuru exhaled slowly. Barrier first, he whispered. Maxwell stepped onto the stage with a microphone, smile shining. "My friends," Maxwell called, voice booming. "London has been attacked by darkness." The crowd murmured. Phones rose. People recorded. Maxwell lifted a hand. "But we are not helpless. We are not blind. We will name the evil." Saris's jaw tightened. "He's doing it." Integra's voice came through Saris's earpiece, low and controlled. "Hold. Do not reveal positions. Wait for the trigger." Maxwell continued, louder. "We will not allow monsters to wear human faces." The crowd's fear rose like heat. Rimuru felt it. He hated it. Then the first scream hit. It came from near the fountain. A man fell, clutching his throat, his skin grayed, his eyes went wild. Then another. Then 10. Ghouls rose from the crowd like poison blooming in water. People screamed and pushed and ran. Bodies collided. Children fell. The panic wave moved faster than any monster. Rimuru moved. He didn't leap into the center like a hero posing for cameras. He did the most important thing first. He made space. A wide barrier snapped into place around the densest part of the crowd, not to trap them, but to guide them. It formed lanes like a simple maze, pushing the running mass into safe exits instead of crushing into one another. People slammed into invisible walls, then followed them without understanding, because their bodies wanted escape. Saris watched from the roof, breath caught. He wasn't fighting yet. He was managing a crowd like a disaster worker. Integra's voice, quiet in the earpiece, smart. From the sewer grates, creatures climbed out. Not normal ghouls, modified ones. They moved in groups, calm-eyed, fast like trained dogs. Millennium. They targeted the lanes, trying to force monsters and civilians together again. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. He created smaller barriers inside the big ones, splitting the modified creatures away from the civilians like cutting fire breaks. Saris fired from above, dropping 2 that tried to leap the walls. The bullets slowed them, but some stood back up. Rimuru didn't waste time arguing with physics. He sealed. Clear cubes formed around the modified ones, snapping shut like locks. 3, 5, 9. He stacked them in the air above a building corner like dangerous luggage. Phones caught it. A boy in the crowd pointed upward and shouted, "It's him! The blue guy!" Maxwell's voice boomed over the speakers, rising above screams. "Behold!" Maxwell shouted. "The demon reveals itself!" Rimuru clenched his jaw. He didn't want to be seen. But if he vanished now, panic would win. So he stepped into the open. Not with a grin, not with a speech, with work. He lifted a hand and made a barrier roof over a group of people crushed against a statue. The pressure eased. They could breathe. They could stand. A mother grabbed her child and sobbed. "Thank you." Rimuru nodded once. "Go. Follow the walls. Don't stop." Some people ran. Others stared like they couldn't decide if he was saving them or hunting them. Maxwell raised his arms dramatically. "See how it controls," Maxwell shouted. "See how it cages you." Rimuru's eyes flashed with anger, but he swallowed it. Because if he shouted back, Maxwell would win. Then Anderson appeared. He dropped onto the edge of the square like a thrown knife, coat flaring, eyes burning. He pointed at Rimuru. "Demon!" Anderson roared. The crowd saw him too. A priest with blades, another hero in their eyes. Phones turned from Rimuru to Anderson in a wave. Rimuru felt the trap tighten. If he fought Anderson hard, the crowd would see monster war. If he held back too much, Anderson might cut through a lane and people would die. Anderson lunged. Rimuru raised a barrier between Anderson and the nearest lane. Anderson hit it and sparked holy light. "You!" Anderson snarled. "You stain the world!" Rimuru's voice stayed steady. "Stop. Look around. People are dying." Anderson's eyes flicked to the crowd for half a second. He saw a child on the ground, screaming for a parent. His jaw tightened. Then Maxwell's voice thundered again. "Do not be fooled," Maxwell shouted. "It caused this." Rimuru's eyes cut to the stage. Maxwell wasn't scared. He was pleased. Rimuru understood something, clean and simple. Maxwell didn't care if people died. Dead people made better stories. Rimuru moved again. He created a barrier bubble around the stage itself. Maxwell's voice cut off mid-word as the sound got sealed away. Maxwell's mouth moved. No sound came out. The crowd stared. For the first time, the square got a little quieter because the loudest fear signal had been muted. Anderson's eyes widened. Blasphemy. Rimuru didn't look at him. He focused on the crowd. He raised his voice, not magically, but through a barrier trick that pushed sound along lanes like a tunnel. "Listen!" Rimuru called, clear and loud. "Run through the lanes. Help kids first. Don't trample. Follow the walls." People obeyed. Not because they trusted him, because his instructions were simple, and simple beats panic. Millennium escalated. A van door burst open near the edge of the square. A larger bioweapon stepped out, stitched and heavy. Its eyes were calm. It carried something in its arms. A person. A young woman, gagged, eyes wide with terror. The creature held her like a shield and walked straight toward Rimuru. Saris's breath hitched. "Hostage?" Integra's voice came tight. "They want him to strike through her." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Raphael spoke instantly. Analysis. Hostage, tethered with control needle. Possible remote trigger. Recommend sever control link. Avoid wide area attack. Rimuru stepped forward. Anderson saw the hostage too. His blades shook slightly. He hated Rimuru, but he was not blind. The creature raised its free hand. A needle flicked out and jabbed into the hostage's neck. Her body jerked. Her eyes went dull. She stood up straight in the creature's arms like a puppet. The creature smiled. Rimuru's jaw tightened. Then he did what the Major wanted least. He stayed gentle. Rimuru formed a thin barrier sheet between the creature and the hostage, like sliding paper between two sticky surfaces. The hostage fell backward. Into a soft barrier, Net Rimuru formed instantly behind her. She landed safely. Breathing. Alive. The creature lunged to grab her again. Rimuru snapped a cube around it and sealed it mid-step. The creature slammed fists into the cube. Cracks formed. Rimuru layered a second cube, then a third. The cracks stopped. Saris exhaled a shaky breath. The crowd saw it. They saw the hostage saved. They saw the demon protect a human without hesitation. Maxwell, trapped behind the soundless barrier on the stage, pounded the invisible wall with his palm, face twisting. Anderson stared at Rimuru. confused anger mixing with something else. Rimuru glanced at Anderson and spoke quietly, but clear. "They used her," Rimuru said, "like they use fear, like they use you." Anderson's jaw clenched hard. "Do not speak of me," Rimuru kept his tone steady. "Then speak of the children in the street." Anderson's eyes flicked, again, toward the lanes. He saw a little girl carrying a smaller boy by the hand, both crying. He swore under his breath. Anderson turned, suddenly, and ran toward the lanes, cutting down a modified ghoul that tried to break into a crowd path. It was fast, brutal, clean. Sarah stared. "He's helping." Integra's voice stayed cautious. For now. Then Schrödinger appeared. He simply stood on the statue base near the center of the square, like he had always been there, hands in pockets, smiling. A dozen phones pointed at him instantly. People didn't know who he was, but their instinct screamed that he mattered. Schrödinger looked at Rimuru and waved. "Hi again," he called, cheerful. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Schrödinger smiled wider. "It's going great. You're being very good." Rimuru didn't respond. Schrödinger hopped down from the statue and walked toward Rimuru through chaos, like the chaos made space for him. "Are you going to stop me?" Schrödinger asked, still smiling. Rimuru spoke, voice low. "I can't stop you." Schrödinger's eyes gleamed. "Then eat me." Rimuru held his gaze. "No." Schrödinger pouted dramatically. "Aw." He stepped closer, and the air around him felt wrong. Rimuru felt the pressure on reality itself, like the square was a page someone wanted to fold. Schrödinger's smile turned sweet. "Kill me then." In front of everyone. Rimuru's eyes sharpened. Now he saw it. This was the Major's cleanest trap. Make Rimuru do something final on camera. Make the world label him forever. Rimuru didn't take the bait. He looked past Schrödinger, toward the lanes, toward the remaining threats, toward the kids still running and crying. He turned his back on Schrödinger. Schrödinger blinked, surprised. "Hey." Rimuru spoke without looking at him. "You're not my priority." Schrödinger's smile twitched. "But I'm the interesting part." Rimuru's voice stayed calm. "No, they are." He pointed toward a collapsed barrier lane where a group of people had gotten stuck near a fountain, blocked by debris and a swarm. Rimuru moved there instantly, forming barriers to lift debris like careful hands, guiding people through. Saras covered him with rifle fire. Anderson cut down anything that broke through near children, snarling prayers through his teeth. Schrödinger stood alone for a moment, looking oddly bored. Then he giggled. "Fine," he said. "If you won't give them a monster, I will." He snapped his fingers. A speaker system somewhere near the stage crackled back to life outside Rimuru's soundless bubble. A different voice came through. The Major's voice. Warm, theatrical. "Citizens of London," the Major said, loud and clear. "Look closely at your savior." The crowd turned, confused. Rimuru felt the chill run through the square. The Major continued, delighted. "He can do anything. He can erase this war. He can erase your fear." Rimuru's eyes narrowed. "Stop." The Major laughed. "But he won't, because he wants you to love him for restraint." Rimuru's jaw tightened. Maxwell, still trapped behind the stage barrier, grabbed his mic and shouted silently, face furious. The Major's voice rose. "And if you do not love him," the Major said, "you will ask your leaders for chains." Rimuru moved fast. He expanded his barrier bubble to include the hidden speaker tower. The sound cut. Silence returned. Rimuru exhaled slowly. He looked at the crowd, and his voice carried again through his barrier lanes. "I'm not here to be loved," Rimuru said. "I'm here to stop you from dying." Simple. Honest. The crowd didn't cheer. They were too scared for that. But they ran. And they lived. That was enough. The last big threat was a truck near the edge of the square. It had been rigged as a release point. Its back doors opened, and several more modified creatures surged out. Rimuru didn't waste time. He raised both hands, and the air filled with cubes, snapping shut like locks. 5, 10, 15. He sealed the truck too, wrapping it in a thick barrier like shrink wrap, then lifted it slightly off the ground and placed it in an empty space away from people. Sarah stared down from the roof, breath caught. He moved a truck like it was furniture. If he wanted to, he could crush the whole square. He didn't. He chose control. Again. Anderson stood near the lanes, chest heaving, blades dripping black blood, eyes locked on Rimuru. He looked angry. He also looked shaken, because he had just watched a demon protect humans more carefully than many humans did. Maxwell pounded the inside of the stage bubble, face red with rage. Rimuru finally looked at him. He didn't speak. He simply lowered the stage barrier enough to let Maxwell's voice return. Maxwell inhaled, ready to poison the crowd again. Rimuru raised a small barrier sheet right in front of Maxwell's mouth. Maxwell's words came out as muffled noise. The crowd heard it. They laughed. Not a warm laugh, a nervous laugh, the kind people make when fear cracks for 1 second. Maxwell's eyes went wide in insulted shock. Rimuru looked away and focused on the last civilian still trapped near a statue. That one small laugh did more damage to Maxwell's story than bullets ever could. Schrödinger stood off to the side, watching, smiling again. "You're stubborn," he said softly. Rimuru didn't answer. Schrödinger sighed dramatically. Fine, this was still fun. Then Schrödinger was gone. The square didn't settle because it was still full of sirens and crying and smoke. But the massacre didn't happen, and that mattered. Hellsing teams moved in fast, pulling survivors into safe streets, wiping cameras when possible, threatening when necessary. But the truth had already been seen by too many eyes. The blue demon had saved them. Not perfectly, but clearly. Integra stepped out of her car at the edge of the square, coat sharp, cigarette lit. She looked at the sealed truck, the stacked cubes, the barrier lanes still holding their shape like invisible architecture. She looked at Rimuru. "You just became a public problem," Integra said. Rimuru's voice was tired. "I know." Integra's eyes narrowed. "They will come harder now." Rimuru nodded. "Then we get smarter." Saras climbed down from the rooftop, breathless, eyes wide. She looked at Rimuru like she wanted to say, "Thank you," and didn't know how. Anderson stood a short distance away, watching them. He looked like a man who had swallowed something sharp. Maxwell, still on the stage, shook with rage. His men pulled him back. He glared at Rimuru like hatred was a prayer. He turned and left, coat snapping, smile gone. Millennium did not show its face again that day. But Rimuru could feel the retreat. Not defeat. A retreat with data. The Major got what he wanted most. Footage, reaction, fear. He just didn't get the monster moment. Not today. As the sun began to lower behind the buildings, the square emptied into ambulances and police lines and shaken survivors. Rimuru stood alone for a moment amid the invisible walls he had built. He lowered his hands slowly. The barriers faded, one by one, like a careful breath being released. And he felt it. The new status. He wasn't just a hidden factor anymore. He was a name in the city's mouth, a story people would fight over. Integra walked past him and spoke without looking at him. "You did not break," she said. Rimuru's voice was quiet. "I almost did." Integra's eyes flicked, sharp. Then don't. Rimuru nodded. I won't. Alucard's laugh drifted from somewhere behind, soft and pleased. Good, Alucard murmured. Stay interesting. Rimuru didn't turn. He just watched the last ambulance lights vanish into the streets, because the city would sleep tonight. Not safe, but alive. Rain came that night, light and steady. It washed blood off stone. It washed smoke out of the air. It did not wash fear out of minds. Rimuru sat on the manor roof again, knees up, coat pulled tight. He watched London's distant glow through the rain like it was a separate world. Footsteps approached. Careful. Sarah sat down a few feet away, rifle laid beside her. She stared out at the city too, jaw tight. They stayed silent for a while. Then Sarah spoke, voice quiet. Do you ever get tired, she asked, of saving a world that doesn't want saving? Rimuru breathed in slowly. He didn't answer fast, because he didn't want to lie. Yes, he said. Sarah nodded once, like she expected it. Rimuru continued, calm and simple. I get tired of the killing. I get tired of people using fear like a weapon. Sarah's voice dropped. They called you a demon. Rimuru's eyes stayed on the city. They can call me whatever they want. Names don't change what I do. Saras glanced at him. That's easy for you to say. You don't feel what I feel. Rimuru looked at her gently. You mean the hunger. Saras's throat tightened. She nodded. Rimuru's voice stayed steady. I do feel it, in my own way. I feel it when power makes choices too easy. Saras frowned. What does that mean? Rimuru spoke simply. If I can solve everything by crushing it, I start doing that. Then I stop thinking. Then I stop caring. That's how a protector becomes a monster. Sarah stared at the rain on her gloves. And you're scared of that? Rimuru nodded. Yes. Saras's voice turned small. I'm scared I'll become like him. Rimuru knew who she meant without asking. Alucard. Rimuru looked at Saras. You won't. Not if you keep choosing. Saras swallowed hard. What if one day I choose wrong? Rimuru's voice was gentle. Then we pull you back. We don't leave you alone in it. Saras's eyes glistened. She blinked hard and looked away, like she hated tears more than bullets. Behind the rain-smeared glass doors, Integra stood inside the manor, watching them from the dark. Her cigarette glowed like a small red eye. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. Somewhere deeper in the shadows of the manor, Alucard watched too, unseen, amused, and quiet. The city didn't know how close it had come to becoming a stage for monsters. It only knew it had been saved. For now, Saras finally spoke again, voice rough. So what are you going to do? She asked. Stay here forever? Rimuru looked out at London, rain tapping softly around them. No, he said. I don't belong here. Saras's chest tightened. Then why stay? Rimuru's answer was simple. Because people are here, he said, and they're trapped in a war they didn't choose. Saras nodded slowly, like that made painful sense. Rimuru added, quieter. I can't fix this world overnight. I can't erase what it is. He paused. But I can build small, safe pieces inside it, Rimuru said. And I can stop the worst people from owning the story. Saras looked at him, and for the first time, her face softened without fear. You're really stubborn, she said. Rimuru smiled a little. Yes. Saras huffed a weak laugh. Integra's going to hate you forever. Rimuru's smile stayed. That's fine. Saras looked back at the city lights. Do you think, she asked quietly, it will ever get better? Rimuru watched the rain falling over London like a curtain. He didn't promise miracles. He didn't preach. He just spoke the truth he lived by. It can, Rimuru said. if we keep making it harder for darkness to win. Saras nodded once. They sat in silence again, listening to rain and distant sirens. And as the night moved on, London kept breathing. Not healed, not safe, but different now, because somewhere above it, a blue stranger watched and chose restraint again, one night at a time.